Welcome. I'm calling to order the board meeting of the DWP for October 16th, 2013. The agenda calls initially for opening remarks by me, and I don't have any opening remarks other than to welcome people to the meeting, and we'll proceed. Barbara, would you like to call the roll?
Yes, we have Commissioners Berard, Fleming, Funderburk, Levine, and Noonan present.
Very good. And this proceeding is broadcast on Channel 35. The exact broadcast times can be found by contacting Channel 35. The next item on the agenda, well, before I go to the next item on the agenda, let me just make one announcement. We are going to defer item number 20, which is the labeled in the agenda as the California Dining Services Agreement. And that item is going to be deferred to the next board meeting. With that, we'll call on the general manager for his report.
President,
yes,
that will require a vote.
Oh, thank you very much. That's one of the reasons we have counsel here. I move to defer item number 20. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Any opposed? Carries. That's now deferred. Mr. Nichols.
Yes, just a brief note. Last night there was a reception that was held among a number of the utilities and other entities down at Metropolitan Water District for two newest commissioners to the California Energy Commission, and that's Janaea Scott and David Hochschild. And the reason I bring it up is as we are going through so many significant changes in our power supply, as we get off of coal, as we go through elimination of once-through cooling, as we ramp up our renewable energy, we have a significant increasing relationship dealing with the Energy Commission on policy matters, on research matters, and on regulatory matters as well. I'm very pleased to Commissioner Funderburk was there at that meeting as well as several of our managers and staff there. They expressed significant interest in the things that the department's doing. I think we can anticipate that they're going to be wanting to get briefed more on some of the things that we're doing, and we're highly laudatory of the progress that the department has made. So I just wanted to bring that to the full board's attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to hear. Is that your full report?
That would be my full report in the interest of moving this agenda along.
Item 3 on our agenda is comments or requests from commissioners relating to LADWP operations. Do any commissioners have any comments or requests under this agenda item?
I would like to request that we place on the agenda the presentation relating to the procurement process of the Department of Water and Power. I know that presentation was available to our former board, but we decided to defer it until the new commissioners joined the department, and I think it's a timely manner to agendize.
So noted, and I assume that request will be granted
Indeed.
In the near future.
Yes.
Other comments or requests from commissioners relating to LADWP operations? I have one as well, which is I'd like a report at some point in the near future with regard to what board committees, if any, are required. We haven't established any committees since the new commission was established, and some of us are unsure what committees are actually required to be established. Other requests or comments? Okay, we'll move to item 4, which is public comment. We have one card on item number 4 and 3 cards on item number 20. Item number 20 is the item that was deferred, so we will not call on the people who are here for item 20. You're welcome to come back at the next session, which is when I anticipate that item will be considered. Well, Rich, did I?
Yeah, almost.
Go ahead.
Basically, if they want to go ahead now and speak in public session.
That's fine. Okay. If you want to speak now, you're welcome to. Item 4,
Okay, should we hear the item 20 cards as well under item number 4? Mr. Brown?
Mr. Brown?
Should we also hear the item 20
They
right
can,
now?
if they choose to speak, they can speak now during public
great.
comment.
Okay. Then we have about 5 cards total for right now. The first speaker is Tony Wilkinson, and please limit your comments to 2 minutes. Thank you.
Tony Wilkinson from the Neighborhood Council, Department of Water and Power Memorandum of Understanding Oversight Committee. I have just a comment. I noticed in item 4 in your closed session, you'll be dealing with some real estate matters as part of the ongoing negotiation on divestiture of the Navajo generating plant. And as I've mentioned once before to the prior board, this is a lot of base load power that we're going to lose for some very good environmental reasons. I do think, however, that, and this board hasn't seen yet the base load generating solution that's going to replace that and give us the same amount of security, guaranteed power anytime we need it for a known cost. And I really think that there is, the board perhaps should weigh in on the policy that's going on with this negotiation. Important to ratepayers is money, but also important to ratepayers is reliability. And I would hope that maybe in divestiture of Navajo, there is some way that we can build in, at a cost, some ability to use baseload power at a significantly higher rate, probably less than renewables, just in case we need it, because until we have that replaced, it's going to be a significant hit to this utility, and we'll be on the open market for that amount. So I think maybe in closed session, perhaps the board could at least think about these concerns. I'm concerned as a ratepayer about reliability. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next speaker is Jack Humperville.
My name is Jack Humperville. I'm with the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council. Our rates are going up, and up. Our water rates are going to balloon this year because of shortages and environmental reasons. We're going to be asking for base rate increases probably in the beginning of the year for both water and power. At the same time, ratepayers being clipped for about over $1 billion a year by City Hall, whether it's the 10% city utility tax for about $300 million, the $250 million 8% transfer fee, the paying for the dumping of 1,600 employees on the Department of Water, city employees on the Department of Water and Power, to say nothing of their $200 million pension liability that we got soaked with. It doesn't include and it also includes all these pet projects, whether it's Silver Lake, Elysian Park, Griffith Park, streetlights, fiber optics, Reckin Parks, and feed-in tariffs. But it seems like DWP is just a piggy bank for the City Council. Just last week, we've seen 4 new items come up. There's business about Labange introduced a measure about the Griffith Park Southern Water Recycling System. We also had another motion by him on the Griffith Park water system, which, from what I gather, we already operate because Reckin Parks has blown it. We also even have something about fixing the water fountains that would, sort of sounds like they're going to dump it in DWP's lap. And then we also have the green retrofit project that we're going to have to fund, that the DWP is going to have to fund. We have the feed-in tariffs that we've talked about earlier. That's the ratepayers' advocates. That's going to cost us $250 million over the next 20 years. When is this going to stop? I think we have a new board, and I think it's incumbent on you guys to protect the ratepayers from these guys at City Hall, who are essentially looting DWP at the expense of the ratepayers and at the expense of the reliability of our water and power system. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Thomas Walsh. Thomas Walsh. Okay, the next one then is Miguel Fernandez. Miguel Fernandez. Okay, then after that is Ana Villadares. Ana Villadares. No? Okay, then that's all the cards I have for now.
Thank you very much. Does the ratepayer advocate or his designee have any comments for item 5 on the agenda? None. Okay. Item 6 on the agenda is to approve minutes of 7 different meetings of the DWP. Special meeting May 24th, regular meeting June 4th, special meeting June 19th, special meeting June 26th, regular meeting July 16th, regular meeting August 6th, and special meeting August 27th. Those meetings were sent around, those minutes were sent around to all of us. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Mr. Brown?
Yes, Mr. Brown.
Only those that were at the meeting can vote to approve them.
Well, then what do we do?
Note file, can we
There's
note
no,
file?
is one a quorum of one?
No. It would have to be 3 minimum.
Well,
So we'll just defer them. And
how do you ever get them approved?
Can they be
they would
noted
just
in
note in
file?
file. Yeah.
They
That's
just be
exactly
put in the
right.
file without a
Yeah,
motion to approve?
that's right.
Okay. So there is no motion to approve because no motion is available.
Correct.
And they will be filed.
Yes, sir.
You're comfortable with that?
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. So will we be.
Question, Mr. President,
Yeah.
then a question about that. Is there a time by which those minutes come back for us to approve in the future so that we don't end up, so that this newly formed commission doesn't end up with 5 or 6 meetings, kind of a backlog of minutes to
Well,
approve?
number one, the only commissioners that can vote and approve it were the people that were at that meeting.
Well, I understand that, but that's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to figure out why, back from May 24, you have meetings that
They'll
those
just
minutes
be
that haven't been
noted.
approved.
They'll just be noted.
Right, but I don't want us to get in the same position, so I'm trying
No,
to figure
I
out
understand that.
when we have a meeting and we have minutes, how fast can we turn around the minutes so that we then can approve them? The next meeting?
We usually do it the next meeting.
It's usually, I would say, the meeting after. It's usually
The
about
meeting
2
after?
meetings. Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
No more than 2
But
meetings.
sometimes we have problems when, like you say, you don't have the people here, and when those minutes come onto the agenda, we
Okay.
can't approve them because...
Okay, but I understand that. That will not happen.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Other comments on this item? Moving to item 7, resolution amending the rules of the board to start regular board meetings at 11 a.m. And again, those will stay on the first and third Tuesday of each month, but start at 11 a.m. rather than 1:30. Is there a motion? Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. That carries, and henceforth the regular meetings of the board will start at 11 a.m. On the first and third Tuesday. I'd ask for a little guidance from our council. We're going to, because of all of the aqueduct celebrations that are scheduled for the date of our next regularly scheduled meeting, I think we'll need to have a special meeting that week on either the 6th or the 7th. What would be the appropriate time or method of raising that issue?
Well, the board secretary can go ahead and have it noticed, and the requisite time for notification would be 24 hours for a special meeting, 72 for a regular meeting. We endeavor to get it out as quickly as possible to give people as much time as possible. But I think once we find out what the availability of the commissioners are, we'll go ahead and set forth a time and a date for that special meeting.
Okay, I believe the board secretary has polled the members, and there were 2 possible dates, one on the 6th, one on the 7th. The 6th, I believe, from 2 to 6 p.m., the 7th from 9 to 1:30. 2 commissioners were not able to attend on the 7th, and 1 commissioner was not able to attend on the 6th. In that case, I would suggest that we go for the option with the most available commissioners, which was the 6th, between 2 and 6. Does any action need to be taken by the board, or is that something the secretary?
The secretary can set that up.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we now go to the consent calendar. I guess we were on the consent calendar with regard to the resolution. Does any commissioner wish to remove any item from the consent calendar, which are items now 8 through 19?
I do. I'd like to address items 11, 16, and 18.
And I would like 10 and 19, please.
Any others?
I would like 9.
Okay. So, let's see. That leaves 8, 12, 13, 14, and 15. 8, 12, 13, 14, and 15 on the consent calendar. Is there a motion?
17 and 20,
Oh, I'm sorry.
or 17?
And 17. Is there a motion to approve those 6 items?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any objection? Those items are approved, and we will now go to the items that have been removed from the consent calendar, starting with item number 9, system support. Amendment number 1, bid number 335 A, B, C, and D, furnishing, delivering, and picking up heavy construction equipment on a bare rental, fully maintained, as-needed basis. Do any commissioners wish a report or just wish to ask questions?
I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. Okay, I'm Tom Patzloff, Fleet Operations Manager, Supply System.
Michael Sullivan, Fleet Operations.
Great. I just had one question on some of these contracts. I had questions last meeting, but what I'm really focused on and interested in, maybe there'll be some follow-up, not on this specific one, but on the bigger issue of local impacts on the local economy of purchases. And I saw what looked like a commoditized type of item being purchased in New Jersey, even though there were some of the vendors on here were in Los Angeles. And maybe if you could just give me some explanation as to how local content is taken into account, not just LA County, but LA City.
Well, this particular contract is not a purchase contract. It's a rental contract for bare rental equipment. You know, the local business preference is always a factor, and one of the vendors, Quinn, which is the largest vendor in here, is a certified local business vendor. The other vendors, because this is heavy equipment, it's very specialized. There's not a lot of companies that can bid on this. So sometimes the participation that we get in the bidding process, we don't get a lot of the people that ideally we would like as locals.
Even for service contracts, I assume that somebody's getting commission and being paid for placing it. Is there an effort to make sure that the prime contractor, where the outside of LA contractors are somewhat of equal weight, the prime is the LA one and the sub is the out of LA one?
That's why you see this contract as A, B, and C, because we put it in groups. We try to put them in smaller groups to allow the smaller local businesses around here to give them opportunity. So we don't want to make it so large that it would exclude them. So that's why you see it like that. So we are very conscious about doing that.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's approved. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Item 10, System Support Amendment Number 2, Contract Number 418, Dye, Inc. Mr. Fleming?
Thank you, Mr. President. So obviously, most of this was done under previous commissions, but I wonder if someone could kind of walk us through it. As you can see, the leap in the cost here is enormous, and that should be troubling to all of us, right? So we've gone from 1.3 to 4.8, basically 1.3 up to $5 million. It's a $3.5 million increase. And so I'd like someone to kind of explain why that took place and what we're doing so that will never happen again.
Okay. The primary reason there's an increase...
Could you introduce yourself?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I'm Matthew Lamp. I'm the Chief Information Officer for LADWP.
And my name is Gene Gamachi. I'm also with ITS.
The primary reason you're seeing an increase is we're extending the length of the contract to supply ink through the expected life of these large commercial printers that we have. This is specialized ink for the printers that do our bill printing. Those printers are capable essentially of producing up to 100,000 full-color, multi-page bills a night to do our billing. We replaced that whole platform a couple years ago. The printers have an expected life to about 2018. And in previous contract work, we did a contract amendment so we didn't have to keep coming back to the board every year or two to the life of the printers for their maintenance, and this is a companion measure to extend the life of the contract for the ink because it is very specialized ink, and basically warranty and support are dependent on using a specific ink supply. So rather, because of our contracting process, where, as in this one, we have to go down to City Council, we have to get a CLA report on the contract because it extends it over a 3-year life. We wanted to do it once for the entire remaining life of the printers. So what you're seeing isn't an increase in sort of cost per year, but rather an increase in the number of years that this contract amount will carry us forward through the expected life of these large commercial printers.
And this takes into account also the fact that we go from billing every other month to...
Yes.
At some point, and it's not something we certainly need to do today, but I think it'd be great for us to learn a little more about the billing process. And also, it seems to me this is the kind of thing that would be great to outsource, right? That this is probably something that doesn't need to be done in-house. There's got to be other folks who use similar printers nationwide. I mean, there's got to be a cheaper way to do this. It seems like a very expensive process.
Potentially, but I'll tell you, we are visited routinely by people around the world to come and look at the printing operation here and how these printers are used and what we're getting out of them. One of the things we do in this process is we have automated the entire print-to-mail process. So literally, from the time the system says a bill is generated at the computer level until it is in a tray of a known address and known zip code sorting for the post office, that entire process is tracked. It gives us the ability to do electronic manifests with the post office, which saves us in the millions of dollars a year in postage. It gives us the ability to automatically get address forwarding corrections. So if somebody has moved their closing bill, we get a forwarding address, and we get it back into the system electronically. It's a very complex process, but it's very tightly integrated into our billing operations.
So, Mr. President, just at some point as an informational briefing, it would be great to know, especially as the department changes its billing timeline. I think it would be great for us to have some kind of presentation about that and the costs that are associated with it.
Mr. Nichols, can we do that?
Yes, we can.
Great. Thanks.
And it is complex, and there's a lot of moving pieces to it, and I think it would be helpful for us to explain that also in context of generally what's involved as we move to monthly billing, too, so we kind of cover that all together because they do interrelate.
Right. That'd be terrific. Thank you.
So we'll add that to the briefing items that we're increasingly requesting. Is there a motion in support of item number...
Mr. President, I
Oh,
just
I'm
have
sorry.
another
Yes.
question.
Ms. Broad.
Yeah. I noticed that there are a small number of this kind of printer in the country, and that's one of the reasons that the cost of the die is so expensive, is that you don't have a great deal of choice. When are you expecting, I think it says here that you're going to replace this printer in approximately 5 years. Will you be looking for a printer that is more compatible with the ink so that the cost of your ink supply will be reduced?
When we acquired these printers, we did a request for proposal. There are literally only 3 or 4 manufacturers in the world who manufacture printers who are capable of providing this service. Each one of them, as we queried them, basically limit their ink supply to ink that they're producing to maintain the quality at the speed these printers run. So whichever printer we select, it appears we end up in sort of the same scenario, but we will review that very thoroughly before we look at replacing these printers when we come to that time in 5 more years.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments? Is there a motion? I move to support it, to approve it. Any second?
Second.
Any opposed? It carries. Thank you very much. Item 11, bid number 496, furnishing and delivering galvanized steel distribution poles, fiberglass distribution poles, ductile iron distribution poles, and fiberglass cross arms. If you would introduce yourselves, and then I'll ask Commissioner Noonan for the initial comments or questions.
Bassam Abu Shakra, Power System Engineering.
Joy Chua, Power System Engineering.
Thank you. I appreciate the department's proactive stance on taking care of our infrastructure, but given the substantial amount that you're requesting to replace these poles, I feel it would be helpful to me as well as to most ratepayers if you could elaborate as to when was the last time these poles were replaced, what area will be covered, will you be coming and asking us for another $20 million for a different area? I feel like that kind of background's missing on this agenda item.
Okay. This is a price and time contract, and it's for 3 years. So every 3 years we'll be coming to the board asking to purchase these type of poles. The most poles we have is wood poles. But we do have certain circumstances, like if we have to put them in the back of the house and it's very difficult to put a wood pole, so we put a lighter pole or a 2-piece pole. And there are some areas where we have what we call riser poles and large crossing, like a highway, so we have to put taller steel poles. And it's covered all across the city of Los Angeles. There's no specific area. And this specification was divided into multiple groups that we can award them separately, and you can see that we're recommending award to 3 different vendors on this bid.
And how does the price compare from wood poles to the steel poles that you'll be using? I understand the methodology and reason for switching over, but how do the price compare?
It depends on the give you an example, on the height of the pole. Normally we buy 35 foot all the way to about 95 foot. So if we look at, let's say, a wood pole, it could cost, let's say, $1,200 versus a steel pole could cost $3,000. So we do. I don't have it with me, but we do have a table comparing wood poles to fiberglass poles, steel poles. And you can see from the board letter that we did recommend to cancel the concrete poles because they're way more expensive, so we're going to use the steel poles instead of concrete poles.
Structurally, there are areas where wood poles will not work, for the expo line, where if you see all the wood poles that we removed, we replaced them with steel pole because of the structural capability of putting it higher because of the line clearances. So there are circumstances where it's not one-to-one replacement of wood with steel because of the height and the structural characteristics of the pole.
And how about the shelf life for a steel pole versus a wood pole? Is the initial investment worthwhile in the long run?
On the wood pole have characteristics. I mean, as far as the initial costs are cheaper, but it has characteristics of deteriorating sooner than the steel pole. But steel pole also has a lot of grounding and things that we have to do, and it's the footing itself is a little bit more expensive, but the life of the steel pole is longer than a normal wood pole. So depending on the circumstances of where those poles are located and the design of those poles will make the determination whether it's cheaper for us to just put a wood pole in kind or replace them.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? No. Other commissioners have questions on this item?
We have the director of our distribution division, Mr. Buckley, is here. And your question, Commissioner, on the overview of the reliability, I think that's a bigger question that if we would like, we will we will set up a separate briefing on the life of the pole, because we have a huge database on the infrastructure and where we are on the replacement, and we could do a separate briefing on that if you would like.
I think that'd be insightful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Is there a motion in support of item 11?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Those in favor? Aye. No opposed? Motion to approve is carried. Thank you. We move to item 16, which
Still
is
us.
bid number, same group.
Yes. Yes.
7513 Modular Office Buildings. Award to Design Space Modular Office Building, Inc. in Fontana. Cost maximum of $242,638, one-time purchase. Commissioner Noonan.
Okay, 2 questions. You state that you'd like to renew what was going to be a temporary solution because you could not find permanent space. However, you didn't elaborate as to why you couldn't find permanent space. I would imagine that Northridge has a lot of vacancies. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, have Daryl answer that.
Yeah, Daryl Buckley. I'm the Director for Transmission and Distribution Division. 3 years ago, we reconsolidated our inspection and maintenance organization. And at the time, it was also an increase of inspectors. So we, when we reconsolidated, we pulled basically 1 or 2 crews out of all of our operating districts and consolidated them, and we created two districts, the Valley and the Metro. So in the Metro side, we utilized our Lincoln Heights facility. We had space in there, and that's where they're housed today. In the Valley side, we really did not have anywhere to place all of our employees and the equipment. So when we started looking around, there was space. We were going to put some office trailers in other locations, and we found enough space in our Northridge district. So what we did is we put the office trailers out there that really houses all of the desks and computers and equipment for all of our inspectors, and they share like the conference room and for when they go to their safety meetings and stuff with the district in the normal facility. So really, that's really what it was all about. We did not have anywhere to place all of our employees in the Valley at that time.
So the other question I had, so there's DWP owns a lot of real estate. There's no other existing location where this division can be housed where we have vacancies?
At the time, we did not have anything in the Valley that we could consolidate that many employees into one location.
You're speaking past tense, but we're talking about approving this today. So how about currently?
Well, these trailers were actually they were leased with option to buy 3 years ago.
We don't have the Valley because of geographic location, because we have crews distributed across the city. In that Valley facility, it's already packed. We've done some after the Northridge earthquake. We've done some remodeling of the existing. These are old buildings. We have a fleet facility. The office space that we have, it's already packed. What we use these overflow facilities is to house the additional resources we have for inspection, for vegetation control, and inspectors. So we basically don't have space in that geographic area to house them. The master plan for us is to put buildings and because of the budget issues and stuff, that we don't have the resources for us to put brand new buildings. These are temporary solutions, but we're calling it temporary, but we're actually, once we buy these, we've done all the seismic retrofits for these trailers, and we've done the hookups and everything. We want to call that permanent, but it's basically modular buildings. And it's good enough for our crews to just come in the morning, do their paperwork, get the information, and then they are in their units out.
So just to clarify, there was an officer to done, but it's not as cost-effective as purchasing these modular sites, which will be permanent. So you're not going to be coming back next year saying that we need to get rid of these modular offices now?
Not in the near future. Eventually, what we're looking at a master plan for our facilities because of reach of the crews and the response time that we have. We are putting together, Daryl and his staff is putting together a master plan for acquiring real estate and building facilities down the road, but that's going to be more of a long-term capital investments that we would do, but nothing in the near future.
And I mean, I would suggest, aside from assessing whether or not to develop a building, to look for existing buildings,
yes.
right? Because that might be more
Yes.
cost effective.
And we've done that. We've done searches. We've looked at the alternatives because of the location again. Because this has lay down area also, and it has a fleet maintenance, and it has fuel pumps in there. Because of the services around that yard, it's much more effective for us. We have real estate. We have the land. This is the cheapest way for us to have a facility where we can house the units without really adding more investments of buying real estate and building. So we're trying to balance the needs of the crews with the resources we have.
Okay. Thank you.
Other comments or questions on this item? Is there a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any opposition? Those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
We move to item 18, under Human Resources, payment of fiscal year 2013-2014 Workers' Compensation Self-Insurance Program administration fees to the State of California Department of Industrial Relations, payment of Workers' Compensation Self-Insurance Program administration fees, cost of $850,000 maximum, fiscal year 2013 and 14. Commissioner Noonan, but first of all, if you'd introduce yourself.
Sure. Shannon Pasquale, Director of Human Resources.
Susanna Reyes, Manager of Workers' Comp.
That's you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. You state that we paid 7% in fees, that now you're asking us to pay 11%, almost 11% in fees, even though our indemnity has decreased. You would think that these fees would not rise unless the volume of work is going up in direct relationship. And you make some mention about state assessment fees have been responsible for that increase, yet you don't elaborate on what those fees are and how much they cost.
Okay,
so if you could just give an overall
Sure.
presentation, I think it'd be helpful.
Part of the challenge that we have in getting the fees specifically from the state is that the state doesn't necessarily provide any kind of detailed information to any of the self-insureds, not just the Department of Water and Power, but anyone in the city in terms of what the fees are. We're estimating based on what we believe the cost is going to be. We really don't have any idea, Commissioner Noonan in particular, because every year we are given a very short window of time to be able to provide the state the money. And as you recall last year, and I know for the benefit of the other commissioners here, they basically sent us the bill for our license about the middle of December, and we have less than 30 days to pay the full amount. Because of the commission schedule during the holidays, we don't always have time to get the commission to approve the actual amount that we're being assessed. And so since the state does assess a $15,000 penalty for every 30 days that we're late in paying that, we're trying to be a little bit more proactive this time around, because if you recall last year we came to you at the first meeting in December and we actually underestimated what our actual cost was going to be based on the state's fees. The other thing that I think is important for this commission to understand is that, and I know that they didn't have the benefit of this information, but last year we were audited by the state of California for our workers' compensation program. We passed the audit with flying colors to the point that the state was here for 4 months and they did not receive 1 penny from this department, which was huge considering that the last couple of times that we had been audited, we were fined in excess of $100,000. We understand that because the state is still struggling with their current situation with their finances, that they're going to try to get the money back from all the self-insureds because they got nothing from us during the audit. But in answer to your direct question, we don't know exactly what the fees are because they don't tell us until we get billed for it.
And there's different factors involved. For example, for the anti-fraud program, they have a special factoring and costing for that, how they spread it among self-insurers. And also right now, the word that we're hearing is that there will be an additional factor, in addition to the 6 other factors, that they will be adding the return to work factor. So we factored in an estimation that up to $850,000. And so we're just being proactive so that we can pay on time, because they're also started applying penalties for each day that we are late in paying the fee. It's $500 per day for each factor.
Can we audit them? It really seems like an unreasonable process.
Well, it makes it very challenging for us because, again, we don't necessarily have the full set of facts, and we're trying to do what we can in our communication with them to get the information so that when we come to the commission, we're providing you with as much detailed information as we have.
Okay. The other thing that stood out that concerned me is you state that currently we have a 3,000 claim case, 3,000 claims in process, and you anticipate an additional 1,000 claims this year. What does that do to, and what can we do to try and decrease
Well, I think
these claims?
We're basing it on what our traditional experience has been given any fiscal year. One of the things that we've been doing since the audit is aggressively pursuing closing as many cases as possible so that when we do get new cases, we're actually offsetting that by closing at least 1 or 2 cases so that the number doesn't exceed 3,000. But part of our challenge also is the fact that the workload and the amount of staff that we have, there's only so many cases a particular individual can manage, and so they're aggressively pursuing that. We're also having a lot more discussions with the various divisions in terms of how we can be more proactive in terms of trying to prevent injuries from occurring. We're working much more closely with our corporate safety office to start identifying trends that we start seeing out in the divisions. If we start seeing that there's 40 back claims coming from the same division, we're out there immediately to figure out what's going on out there so that we can address it immediately and so that we don't have these issues going forward.
And last month, we launched our workers' comp dashboard. We shared it with the divisions so that they themselves can see how much workers' comp is costing because it is spread out and it's integrated into their budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Other comments, questions on this item? Is there a motion to approve?
Begrudgingly, I will.
Second. Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We now move to the last item that was pulled off of the consent calendar, item number 19, Intergovernmental Affairs Renewal Membership for the California Municipal Utilities Association for the fiscal year 2013 and 14. Hello. If you would introduce yourself, and then I'll call on Commissioner Fleming.
Wendy Yancey, Intergovernmental Affairs.
Hi. So, the amount, given all the amounts we deal with, the amount is not that enormous, but I have a question about do we have an annual lobbying or legislative budget? Is there a line item for that, for the DWP?
Actually, yes, there is. This year it is, and I'm sorry I don't have that right at my fingertips, but it is about, we have our state lobbyist is KP, and our federal lobbyist is Denton, and I think collectively those two are about $500,000, but I'm not 100% sure.
And anyone internally who does government affairs, regulatory affairs? And $500,000 seems kind of low, in all honesty. So you think that's all it is, though, for the state,
No,
for both the state and the federal?
I'm going to take that back until Juliet.
Hello, Juliet Wong. Actually, at the moment, I'm Water Systems Grant Manager, but I was at Intergovernmental Affairs a couple weeks ago, so I helped to administer this board letter. So I'm sorry, can you please...
What is the contract amount for KP and or Denton?
Okay. The contract amount for KP Public Affairs, it is a 3-year contract, 1 year with 2 renewal options, total of $1,007,000, I believe, and
for 3 years.
Per year.
For 3 years.
For 3 years.
That's over the 3
years.
Right.
So per year, there's an we pay by retainer, and we pay $15,000 per month, and then we have some travel, and then we have contingency fund, so it's not a total split of $1 million. They, per year, I believe it's about, let's see.
It's not to exceed.
Not to exceed
It's
that, and
not
that's
to
and that's for
exceed.
that's at the state level,
That's
right?
at the state level.
And what about at the
Mhm.
federal level? And we're we're also curious about countywide and region-wide and all that. But I'm trying to get a handle on the amount of monies that are spent on lobbying or governmental affairs.
I don't know Denton offhand. I'm not the contract admin for the federal, but that is to pay. There are 3 partnering agencies for our federal, so we have a very good team for our federal lobbying contracts, and the state team is excellent as well. We actually negotiated the rate down, so it's actually a very reasonable rate for the service that we get. And
But Commissioner, we can get back to you before this meeting is over with the total amount for all of our legislative activities, both state and federal, but on an annual basis, I don't believe
Right.
it exceeds $1 million.
And so those are outside contractors.
Yes,
and
they
then
are.
Internally,
Internally.
what's our budget for folks who do the same kind of work?
It's staff time. It is just DWP staff time, actually.
Do we break it down by what department, who's doing it? I'm just trying to get a handle on how many folks do this kind of work.
It is actually my department, and at the state and federal level, we have, Juliet left 2 weeks ago, so we have about 4 staff people that handle state and federal legislation. They actually do analysis and outreach, and then myself and a team of 3 others do, local outreach and not legislation, but council issues.
And then how many other organizations like this does the DWP belong to? So how many, basically it's what the California Municipal Utilities Association seems to do is the same, looks like it's an awful lot of the same work that some of your consultants would do, right? They're monitoring legislative bodies and governmental agencies. They're offering testimony. I take it there are other ones both at the regional level and the state level, and then also in D.C. So how many other organizations like this do we belong to? Are we where we're paying these kind of dues?
I'm not sure. The only other organization that does come to mind is, for example, APPA or LPPC, but I'm not sure of the exact costs. I don't handle those.
Let me speak to a couple things on that, if I could. Number one, there are other entities. The American Public Power Association is one that we're members of. That is every public power utility in the nation is a member of that. We are the largest of the municipal utilities in that group, and they do. Both of these organizations do much more than just work on lobbying related or advocacy related work. They share information. They have some of their own shared training opportunities. They have a lot of databases that we share with respect to best practices on issues. In particular, to CMUA, there's another one I want to mention, is the Large Public Power Council, which is the 25 largest of the public power entities. And the reason for that being our issues at an organization our size, where we own our own generation, we have our own transmission, we deal with significantly more complex issues than the many of the American Public Power Associations, who have 2,000 customers instead of 1.5 million customers, have different needs and different issues, and so we're more selective and we're able to be more influential on some of these issues. The California Municipal Utility Association is similar in that regard, where they do advisory-related work, but and advocacy-related work, but it's not. The important thing of that is we speak as a voice for all of public power in California when we do that. So we are working with issues that are concerned across the board on renewable energy, energy efficiency, what's happening in terms of matters associated with regulations at the California Energy Commission, so that we are able to actually lever ourselves more and not have to spend as much money on our state advocacy, such as KP, by virtue of having this group. So in my view, this we get more bang for the dollar out of this from the perspective of having better utilization of our advocacy people and knowing what's coming up with regard to regulatory matters that affect all of us cumulatively, that we can speak with a joint voice and have, I think, have a better influence over both policy and regulatory matters.
No, I appreciate it. I get very troubled about belonging to any number of groups, especially ones where, in some ways, as you're saying, where you're the biggest dog there, you're the one really sharing all the information, and I wonder sometimes about why we would pay dues to something where basically you'll end up being the teacher because you're the most skilled at the table.
I wish that were universally true. I don't know that necessarily is, Commissioner. We do learn a lot from different utilities and different circumstances and everything that we do. And while we are big and we know a lot, and I'm very proud of this organization and its capabilities, we learn a lot in collaboration and coordination with our brother and sister agencies and utilities, not just in the public power side, but also in the investor-owned utility side as well.
Thank you. So, Mr. President, I mean, I leave it up to your discretion as to what you'd like to do with this. I'd love yet another presentation, but I'd love us to hear I'd like to hear a comprehensive look at the lobbying, government relations work that the department does in terms of the contracts and the organizations it belongs to. I, for one, would table this until we have a more comprehensive look, but I leave that at the discretion of the board president.
Let's defer the decision until the conversation is over. The ratepayer advocate designee has a comment.
Yes, thank you. I thought it would be of interest that we have a pending data request to the department, asking them to add up really all of the public benefit association dues, a wide variety of things that aren't really involved in producing power and water, so that we could all have a shared idea of how large the total is when individual items come forward, that there's some context. My experience with California Municipal Utility Association goes back to 1988, and in my estimation, they're a very cost-effective way to spread legal costs for representation at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, because many California municipalities have a shared sense of defending their franchise when it comes to transmission issues. So for that reason, they also cost-effectively represent their members at the California Independent System Operator, and when those issues from FERC and the Cal ISO spill over into the CPUC's jurisdiction, they are also there to defend the municipal utilities' right to do their business in their franchise as they see and are determined by this board. So they're filing a lot of briefs in those contexts, and one of the benefits of that is that it's almost a litmus test, that if the group can't agree on what their position is, if one of them, large or small, breaks ranks, it actually tells you something about how difficult the issue is, because to a large degree, 80% of the time, municipals do have a shared interest in running their transmission systems without external interference.
Other comments or questions on this item? I share Commissioner Fleming's desire for a fuller briefing on all of this, and I would join his request for that at an early opportunity.
Mr. President, can I ask a question, because I actually don't know the answer to that. I know at times we have been not perfectly timely on our payment to CMUA. Is that a circumstance that we have right now?
That is.
Afraid of that.
Yeah, I would prefer to not table this particular request and to go ahead and approve it in light of that. But at the same time, I think broadly it's very important for us to understand this in a broader context. And we're piling up items for briefings at the next several meetings, but I think they're all important. So my recommendation would be that we approve this request today and have a full briefing on the broader subject as soon as possible, so that as subsequent requests come up, we'll be able to put them in context. Other people comfortable with that? In that case, I move approval of this item. Any second?
Second?
Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Record 4-1 vote, and the matter is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that, we will have a broader briefing
Yes,
on
we
this.
will.
I believe that takes us through what at one time was the consent calendar. Item 20, which is the next item, is deferred. I'm going to want to have a break before we get all the way through. What I propose is that we go through items 21, 22, and 23, then take a break, and then complete the calendar. Item 21, approval of cooperative purchase agreement number 47199 for Houston Galveston Area Council of Governments contract number RA 0512 Motorola Radio Communications Equipment Software and Services. You gentlemen who have returned will introduce yourselves again. We'll proceed.
I'm Matthew Lamp. I'm the Chief Information Officer for Los Angeles Water and Power.
And Gene Gamachi with ITS, Assistant Director.
Why don't you give us an overview and then see if there are questions.
Okay. So, as a background, LADWP today operates 3 radio systems. We run a 900 megahertz trunked radio system in the basin. We run a system up in the Owens Valley for our Owens Valley crews, and we run what's referred to as a low band radio system that's very wide area that's used basically predominantly by our transmission patrol to cover the broad area of our transmission grid. This proposal is to replace the system that is in the basin. That system was brought in 1990, purchased in 1990. And in 2005, there was some work done on that system to extend its life, and I think it was viewed then that it would extend its life to roughly 2010. We are now facing the time where the system absolutely has to be replaced. And we're talking about systems that the technology basically in the core goes back to sort of 286 computers. Motorola has stopped producing parts. They've basically told everybody who's running these old analog systems, you really have to be off them by 2016. And so a couple years ago, we came to the board and engaged a consulting firm to help us look at our options. And we had a number of questions for them. One was looking at the state of the technology and, for example, whether what's going on in broadband could support the voice communications issues. There's been a lot of discussion at the national level, and the consensus is that it's not ready for prime time for when you need highly reliable communications. The systems we're talking about here basically are built to what we would call utility or public safety grade. What that means is that they have a great deal of redundancy in how they're built. They operate off of essentially high mountain towers where you equip them with every site with a generator, with a fuel supply. You connect them by microwave so that they are not susceptible to downed lines, taking them out of service. And that's really the type of system that LADWP, with its emergency response requirements, really needs to have for communication. The consultant looked at a number of options, and out of their initial review, a P25, and let me explain that. P25 is a national standard for interoperable radio systems designed at public safety and first responders. And the idea is that if somebody else who has in this case, a 900 megahertz public P25 radio system were to come to assist us and bring their radios, those P25 radios would be compatible with this system. So it was that whole standard process was aimed at improving interoperability and mutual aid capabilities in systems. Going with that are some things that make P25 a little bit more expensive at the individual radio level. When the consultant went through and did their review, they identified 3 options, and their estimated pricing on P25 basically made it look not very feasible for the department. 2 things happened after that, and one was we had some discussions with the city who had just upgraded one of their radio systems to P25, and there were discussions about whether we could share that system. And we went through a lot of analysis with them on that, and we refer to that as the STARS system. And then the other thing that occurred was Motorola came back to us, who is our current provider of the 900 megahertz system, and came back with a price proposal based on this Houston contract, which has been used by a number of entities around the country, including LAWA in here, that brought the price of a P25 system very much into play, into the range. In fact, was less expensive than moving to the city's existing system. And that may sound counterintuitive because here we have to put new receivers, new transmitters in our sites, a new core for the system, etc. The reality, though, when you actually get into the details of the cost, is that the last few years, the equipment we've been buying from Motorola for our existing system is compatible to the new system with basically just a software upgrade. So roughly, I'm trying to remember the number, I think it's 1,000 of our existing units can be upgraded to work on the new system without replacing the radios at anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 a piece. It also dramatically simplifies the installation because we don't have to pull a radio and perhaps change all the mounting equipment, the mounting situation in the various trucks, which are often customized to make that happen. So as we went through a detailed review, and we had a steering committee with people from the water system and power system and fleet engineering and our radio folks involved in reviewing those options, and came to the conclusion for a number of reasons that this was the superior option for DWP. There were some restrictions with the city system that were problematic for us. They would not allow us to do any data over the system. They would not allow us to do over-the-air programming, which means if we have to patch or change something in the system, we have to bring all those radios into the shop, where a lot of maintenance can be done over the air. They would not allow us to connect the radio to a telephone call, which is something we do use frequently today for our crews. So there were a number of restrictions. In addition, while their system is a 6-site system in the city, and the Motorola proposal is a 6-site system, the city sites are fixed, and the Motorola one allows us to place 2 locations where we don't have transmitters now at places that really fill holes that are important to us that are less important to the city, because they tend to be places in the Santa Monica Mountains where we have facilities where there isn't a lot of requirement for the city to be as reachable there. So coverage actually is better with the Motorola proposal. So for that reason, we came to the conclusion that this was the best way forward, and that this contract provided us some very significant discounts and brought the price for that approach down to be actually less than the other alternatives that we were reviewing through this now, I think, 3.5-year review of what's the most best way for us to proceed forward.
Questions? Comments? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 22, approval of settlement of eminent domain litigation for highway easements, people of the State of California v. City of Los Angeles, Dalewood Street, Baldwin Park, I-10-605 Interchange Improvement Project.
We're asking, Mr. President, we're asking approval for settlement of the eminent domain action by Caltrans for allowing the strip of the land that they require to improve the highway. And just a brief overview of where the location is. We have a 287 kV transmission line that comes from Victorville to Century, and that's the easement that we have. And the request to settle, it's a small strip of land that needs to be turned over to Caltrans. It's about a couple feet wide by 150 feet long, and the settlement is for about $13,300 to allow that transfer of that piece of land to Caltrans to improve the highway proposal. And this is just a map of where that strip is. It crosses Highway 10 and 605. It's our transmission line crosses 10 freeway north-south.
I'm confused. I thought in an eminent domain lawsuit against us, we would be compensated.
We are going to be compensated, $13,300.
Oh, total, I see. Okay,
Yeah.
good. I thought it was an expenditure.
No,
Okay.
it is. It's payment for us.
Now I'm not confused anymore. Are there questions or comments? Asking Aaron why we didn't get more.
It's not. There's no impact on operations at all, and it's.
I'm just giving you a hard time. I move approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's approved. Thanks.
Thank you.
Item 23, which I understand is being presented today for discussion purposes and not for action. Construction of underground conduit and substructures for the Scattergood Olympic Cable A.
Yes. We would like to kind of go, this is a project that's been in the works for a long time, and there's a lot of information, so we would like to kind of have a discussion this time, and any questions that we would entertain, but we will bring it to the board next time for approval.
Let me just comment that I believe this is not only a good idea and appropriate, but a good way to proceed in general on complex, expensive projects, so that we aren't expected to make a judgment based on a 3-day review of a board agenda. So on behalf of my colleagues, I believe I'm speaking as well.
And
we appreciate that.
And related to that is, you'll find this is, as we go through this is a project of some long standing. The prior board had a lot of input and understanding about this as it went through. You'll find there'll be a few of these things that go through that. So we will try to be mindful.
Commissioner Noonan will know about it.
She will.
But she hasn't told us about it.
And she can only tell one of you about it. So, right? So we will try to be mindful of that on things. You'll find there are a number of major projects. Not just projects. Some of the things that we have programmatic. One of the things you'll hear about is a lot of things in our IT area, a lot of things that relate to our customer service system that has lots of different moving parts. We spent a fair amount of time with the prior board bringing them up to speed on that. This is another one of those types of things. So what we'll try to do is give you some context for that today, and then we'll be mindful of this as much as we can on other similar pieces of much larger either programs or projects as we go.
We appreciate that. We're sorry that the board turnover requires you to repeat what you've done before, but
quite all right.
It is very helpful and important to us to have that back.
And we completely understand.
So, Mr. President, I'll lay out the project and any questions that we get, we'll get you the information. But just to start on the overview, you've been to the Scattergood power plant repowering, the groundbreaking. So at the bottom of the screen there, it's the power plant that we own, and we're in the process of spending over $1 billion retrofitting the units that are old, and we're going to get off of ocean cooling eventually and have a state-of-the-art generation in this location here. And that's about 830 megawatts of power that we eventually will get in this point. One of the problems in the system like ours is because we have a highly dense population and development in the area, it's extremely hard to get the avenues for us to get that energy to the different parts of the city. So just an overview of what we are proposing here. We have a cable, and I brought some sample of what that cable looks like here. After the meeting we can look at the difference between an overhead line and an underground line that we're proposing. This is about 11.4 miles of underground cable that we will lay out from that point to the west side of our city. Is the overhead lines, as you see them on the big steel structure, they look like this, and they're very small and very cheaper to construct, versus the underground cable that we're proposing on putting underground, which is much more expensive, but it's engineering-wise and construction-wise, it's more challenging, but for aesthetic reasons and real estate reasons, that's the only way for us to get the cable from that point to the west side done. So it tells you the complexity of what we're proposing on putting in, and what you see here is a routing that we came up after we have gone through the environmental impact report. We've identified all the impacts that we would have for this project to go forward, from noise to environmental to electromagnetic field mitigation, traffic mitigation, anything that we have outlined out there as far as the impacts and the mitigation factors, and we've come up with a proposed route that our previous board has approved to move forward with. The issue right now from a reliability perspective is that we have that point of generation at the south end of our city that has the power, but getting it to the west side has been a challenge and reliability issue, because the cable that we have right now in the ground, it's over half a century old. It has seen failures. It has been extended. The life of that cable has been extended beyond its service levels. And it's time for us to have this cable installed, for us to have the redundancy for reliability, for maintenance, and also for the long-term integration of our renewables as we bring it to our system. So it is all these engineering and operational reasons that we need to have this project done. It's taken us a little longer to go through the EIR, but it was worthwhile for us to go through the communities. We have over 30 meetings that we've conducted with the communities, listened to their concern, addressed every issue that's out there. So this proposal has been vetted. It's been discussed with the community. It's the best route for us to take, and this is what we're going to bring to our board next time for approval. The contract that you will get is contract 7422 that's going to come to the board, and that's about $47 million worth of contracts for a contractor to come in to dig the center of a street, to install the conduit banks that we would house these cables, and for our crews to integrate with the contractor in order for us to make this project complete. But it also has different components, so I'd like to kind of go through them quickly to show the different parts of the contracts that we have put in place. That adds up to about $113 million total, with the contingency, about 10%, that we put in the project for us to allow for any unknown conditions that we will encounter as we do the excavation and installation We have some sensitive, environmentally sensitive areas that we are going to be crossing underneath a bridge, attaching the cables under a bridge to avoid the environmental areas. And we have those designs completed. As much as we know, we've estimated the cost of the total projects, but we've added about 10% contingency just to allow some flexibility for us to address any unknown conditions that we would encounter. The schedule for just going back on when we started the engineering was back in 2007. We have, in 2008, we've had a negative declaration from 2008 to 2010, and we've conducted, 3 open houses and 30 neighborhood meetings, and 10 meetings with the council districts to address the concerns. We've had the environmental impact report in January of 2010. The process from January 2010 to July 2012. We have our board has taken action back in July 2012 for us to move forward. We have procured a lot of the vaults and the material and the cable for installation. And the conduit construction has started from the power plant moving towards the Imperial Highway. Our crews are already making that connection from the power plant to the beginning of the contract, which is at the corner of Vista, Del Mar, and Imperial Highway. We are predicting the in-service date. We are shooting for August of 2015 to have this cable in service, commissioned and in service. And by that time, we will have the Unit 3 for Scattergood is scheduled to be completed June of 2015. So by the time we finish repowering Scattergood Unit 3, this cable will be in place, and we would use the redundancy that will create for us to make sure our reliability is not compromised. So we're timing the construction of this cable with the repowering of Scattergood Unit 3. With that, that's kind of high-level overview. There's a lot of information in your packet, and I know there was an environmental impact report attached to your report. We have a summary of those items of concerns. One of the things that was brought up was the EMF issue, and we've addressed that fully in the EIR. And we've considered a lot of those inputs from the concerns that the communities had in the design of the cable. And you can see the cable itself is insulated, but during the design of the banks that the cable goes into, we have added more shielding around the cables, and then we've done the design of these phases in order for us to minimize as much as we can the impact of having this installed in the center of the street going up to the west side.
Speaking as someone from the west side, people will appreciate whatever you can do to deal with those issues. I have a couple of questions. This is, on the one hand, fascinating, and on the other hand, daunting. Are there comparable projects that we could compare what we're doing with here to in other parts of either the city or the state or the country?
We have this voltage level. We have a belt system around our city that's 230,000 volts that we use for wheeling the power around the city. This is part of that system. It's a weak link that we have between our coastal plant to the west side. We have a lot of experience ourselves doing that, but we have other utilities in the East Coast that do this in a condensed area like our city. As far as the reliability and the technology that's being used, we've taken all of those into account when we did the design of the system, because we are going to rely on this cable to carry the load from Scattergood to the west side. We're doing a lot of improvements in the station itself, to give us redundancy. And we use this for contingency planning, in case we have other parts of the city fail. We rely on this. This is a 630 megawatts of capacity that we're going to have on this cable alone. That's going to give us a lot of headroom for us to move things around as we do the improvements to our city.
How do our costs compare to comparable projects elsewhere?
We're competitively bidding the contracts. The material is competitively bid. The contract is competitively bid, and we believe we're getting a very competitive pricing when it comes to per mile, given all the traffic control and all the construction constraints that we have going into a very densely populated area of the city. We believe we're getting a good price on this.
When you say competitively bid, how many bidders?
We have 3. I have Bassam give a background on.
Good afternoon. Bassam Abu Shakra, Power System Engineering. We did receive 3 bids, and the bidder that we're recommending is a local company based out of Northridge, California.
We only received 3 bids because there are only a limited number of companies who can do this?
There are some national companies. When we have a service contract like this, we have a bidders conference, and it's invited to everyone. We did get 2 other companies to come. One is Park Construction, which is a large national company, but they decided not to bid on this one. I know we do have, the City of Los Angeles, Department of Power, have about 120 miles of underground transmission, about 70 miles of 138,000 volt, and 50 miles. If you compare that with the investor-owned utilities, we have twice as much as PG&E, Edison, and San Diego Gas and Electric. So it's very difficult to compare with the investor-owned utilities. But and also the location of the project, the traffic control, we do have some restriction as to the hours they can work, 9 to 3 instead of working from 7 to 5 because of traffic. That's a mayor's ordinance. So it's very difficult to compare with local projects in the state of California. And also the cable, that cable that Aram showed you, that is the largest cable installed by any utility west of the Mississippi. So I know there's in Florida they installed that 5,000 kc mill, but I'm not aware of any utilities west of the Mississippi that have that size cable.
I noticed that we received a protest from the highest bidder protesting both the bid that we are proposing to accept and the second lowest or highest bidder. And you outlined in the presentation that you presented to the written presentation the rationale for the rejection of the protest. Could you just share that with us a little bit?
Yes. The highest bidder, Henkels McCoy, it's a national company, and they're stating that the lowest bidder, Northwest, and the second lowest bidder, RASIC, they're small companies. They cannot perform. They don't have the capacity or the capability to do this. So, we got to do our diligent work. So what we did is the supply chain services requested financial statements from Northwest, which was turned over to our financial service organization. They reviewed it, and they didn't have issue. And also, we had a meeting with Northwest. We posed about 11 questions to them. And I do have the list of questions to make sure that, they have the capacity. I know they're capable to do the work. We have a small contract with them currently that's going to expire December 10 of this year, and it's for small conduit, small construction of substructures, and they have the capability and they do a good job. But we want to make sure that they have the capacity. And based on the interview and what they told us, they do have the capability and the capacity to do this work.
And I saw that they have participated in many Southern California Edison projects. Were those large projects?
No, they were not large.
They were not large.
No.
But you're confident that even though the other projects are smaller, they clearly do have the capacity.
Yes.
Yeah, we're confident that they're going to be able to perform.
Commissioner Barat.
Yeah, I have some questions. Could you explain to us how you go about determining that it's more feasible to have an independent contractor than to do it in-house?
Okay.
We have this is a combination of contract and in-house, because we have the termination from the power plant in, there are areas where our crews are much more familiar with the interface between the cable and the facilities that we have. So we've kind of balanced the two sides of as far as we have enough work in the city for our crews, to get involved. They're involved in this portion of the connection of the cable to our power plants. And from the point where we decided it's much more feasible for us to have additional resources from a contractor to come in and do this work, because it is a specialty work that our crews are capable of doing, but we just don't have the capacity for us to perform this work while we do the rest of the city. So that's a decision that we make to balance the in-house and services like this.
Okay, thank you. I have another question. I noticed that this overall is almost $48 million, and 15% of that is the contingency that you've built in, which is over $6 million. And I understand the logic of contingency and how that works in business, but are there steps that could be taken to reduce the scope of the project to bring it closer to the original estimate, which was $41 million?
The contingency is basically we're asking for allowing us the headroom, but as far as the scope of what we have described, we've done the due diligence to identify every obstacle out there to make sure that the estimate that the contractor gives, our goal is to have no change order as we go forward with this. But having done this for many times, there are instances where we cannot identify everything out there. So we allow ourselves, so we don't come back to our board with the permission to add that contingency. We control that part in order for us to pay for legitimate change orders that we couldn't foresee, and the contractor was not fair for them to put in their bid. So we do have a process in place to receive the change orders, analyze the change orders for their merits, and allow for that payment to be made based on the merits of that change request. And we have a process in place with purchasing and our project management, construction management processes to make sure that's controlled.
That's a lot of headroom, over $6 million.
It is.
That's a big head. I mean,
It is, but it is like I mentioned. There are a lot of unknowns as we're going through some sensitive areas in order for us to make allowances, especially when we are going under a bridge. For us to make sure that we comply with all the requirements. Because right now we have made assumptions on what those scopes are going to be, but as we go through those, we don't know exactly how that is going to turn out, and that's why we're adding it.
But what you're saying is that you're going to be monitoring that portion.
Yes, that is our authorization to go into the contingency, but that doesn't mean that the contractor doesn't have any scope changes, and our goal is to make sure that at the end of the project we end up with not using that contingency. That's our goal. Mm-hmm. But if there is, we don't want to be holding up the progress of the project for any schedule impacts and kind of go through this and get the project done without really coming back to the board.
Okay, thank you.
I know you mentioned the $41 million and the contingency. Now, this contract has several options at DVP to exercise. So it's possible by the end of the project, if we don't exercise the option and we don't use the contingency money, we even come below the $41 million.
We would be happy that you did that.
Mr. President?
Yes.
In anticipation of your question, I gathered some information yesterday about comparables, if you would be interested in hearing about how much these lines cost nationally.
I'm sorry.
Would you be interested in the comparables for this type of line nationally?
Would we be interested in this comparable what?
Comparable cost for these kinds of lines.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
The National Electric Reliability Council combines this information across the country, which is kind of useful with limitations, so let me discuss those first. We could decide what the average height was of everyone in the room, but there might not actually be someone that height in the room. So with that caveat, these average costs across many utilities in many different areas are only so useful. But 230-line circuit like that in 2010, according to NERC, was running around $900,000 a mile, and with inflation that puts you around $1 million a mile today. And it has been long a rule of thumb that it costs up to 10 times that to underground a line. This particular project, at $113 million for 11 miles, rounding errors aside, is about that upper limit of 10 times an overhead 230. And I think when you reflect on the total cost, that when you take the coastal area and the population density, that this would be one of the more complex underground projects, and therefore it cannot be said unreasonably high, since it's within the industry's standards and rules of thumb for undergrounding this kind of voltage, if that's helpful.
So did you say it would or would not be unreasonably high?
Would not be unreasonably high. It is at the upper end of 10 times the cost of an overhead line. And, you know, like yourselves, I'm joining this process quite late after the EIR is done, and all the alternatives have been evaluated. So at some point, you know, I accept that the aesthetic and technical challenges of the alternatives have been fully vetted, but I thought it would be helpful for you to know what this costs in general.
Well, that is helpful. I'd be interested in the staff's views with regard to that overview.
It is, I mean, we are at the upper end of 10 times is a reasonable multiplier, but we'll be happy to put an overhead line if we can get it right away.
Does the size of the cable, is that a significant factor in the cost?
It's the size and also the additional design changes that we've done because of the concerns of the community. There's 5 schools that we're coming close to, meaning the wide of the 60 feet wide street. So for us to put in additional jackets and arrangements for shielding the cable was additional cost that we took on because of the concerns and the design changes that we went through for picking up the right shielding and everything. So that kind of pushed our cost up, but it was a worthwhile effort to make sure the community is comfortable with having this cable in there.
I would add that the rulemakings at the state level for dealing with EMF exposure and schools were one of the few areas where the epidemiological studies, a word I can never pronounce right, actually supported the California Public Utility Commission putting additional burdens on siting. And so that is a justifiable increase in cost given a fully vetted investigation.
Your input is very helpful and very much appreciated. Are there other comments or questions on this one?
I did have a question on siting and how, as you said, it's already been done. So, but this is just more informative. Are the same considerations being applied to other less affluent areas of the city? In other words, this seems like a lot of money for a very small service area, and I know there are a lot of jobs there. But it seemed if it's 10 or 11 miles out of 113 miles, that seems like a disproportionate number compared to the population that it serves, is compared to the rest of the city. So, is there anything particularly unique about this area that makes it? Is it that the citizens are very active and they're more likely to complain about things like EMF and require additional conditions, or is it? Maybe you can explain that.
It was just the physics of the system, and from point A to point B, we had, because of LAX being in the middle of the path, we kind of had very limited choices of where the cable could go, and because of that, the concentration of the efforts was to make sure that we pick the best route, not to impact the additional expansions of the airport or any city properties, because we have a lot of transportation corridors that are going through there and other infrastructure upgrades that's going through. So that was the density, the location, and then the choices between those 2 points. It just made it a little bit more complicated than, say, if we had it in a little bit less dense areas of the city, that we would have had much more choices to go through this whole process. That was the only.
So it seems like density is.
It was density and the choices.
It would also be the case that activists are almost everywhere that isn't rural now. The National Electric Reliability Council is finding transmission projects delayed 3 years, and the transmission line siting has doubled from 3 to 4 years to 10 years because everyone is concerned about being near these lines. And so I think there's an aggressive advocacy almost anywhere you try and put a line down.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Thank you very much. We'll defer. We will just hold on to this one. I guess, does a motion need to be made not to vote on this at the moment?
Yes, you would defer it to the next.
Okay, I move to defer this to the next board meeting.
Second.
Any opposition? It's deferred. Okay, I would propose a brief break at this point, and then we'll reconvene in 15 or 20 minutes, and hopefully finish relatively expeditiously.
We're recording.
We'll resume the session of the board meeting. Item 25, Mr. Lieber, I know, has a 2 p.m. City Council committee agenda item, so if there's no objection, I'd like to take that matter out of order. We have 2 cards, 2 speakers on item 27. They'll be called upon, and then we'll go back after item 25 to item 24 and go through the rest of the calendar sequentially. So if there's no objection, we'll go to item 25. Financial Services authorization to sell $380 million of fixed-rate water system revenue bonds under resolutions number 4868 and 4869.
Thank you, Commissioner Levine. Phil Leiber, I'll be speaking on this item. So at the last board meeting, you'll recall, we presented you with an initial bond issuance resolution related to this $380 million proposed issuance. And today, we are asking for your approval for 2 related supplemental resolutions. These resolutions provide more detail about the issuance, including the specific underwriters who we propose to use in the transaction. So we have 2 resolutions in front of you today. Number 4868 authorizes the $380 million Series 2013B bonds. And as you'll recall, we talked about last time, these bonds are essential to fund the capital program for the 13-14 year budget. In total, about 64% of this year's capital improvement program budget for the water system of $766 million, 64% of that will be funded through external sources. This particular offering will fund about 49% of the total, with the balance left over from a previous borrowing. This will provide funding for that capital budget, in addition to about $1.9 million for issuance costs that would fund the costs related to underwriters, the bond counsel, disclosure counsel, financial advisor, and rating agency fees. The package of materials associated with this resolution included various commitments that the department would be making, including a commitment to provide continuing disclosure about the bonds, provided maximum terms, including a maximum true interest cost of 8%. I should say that we expect the actual issuance costs on these bonds to be somewhere in the 4% range. Another important point to make is that the debt service related to these bonds is covered by our existing rates for the 13-14 fiscal year. Another important point to make is that approval for us to issue these bonds does not give us the approval to spend the money. The capital projects that will be used from these proceeds will be coming back to this board. So each project that you'll hear about in excess of $150,000 will be subject to approval. Resolution 4869 names the specific underwriters that will be assisting in the sale of these bonds. These underwriters were selected from a competitive process. We did a 3-year RFP back in 2012 that named a total of 18 potential underwriters in a pool that consisted of 9 senior underwriters and 9 co-managers. From that pool, for this particular transaction, we have selected Wells Fargo as the proposed senior underwriter, and we've selected a co-underwriting team that consists of Barclays Capital, BMO Capital Markets, Cabrera Capital Markets, Loop Capital Markets, Mitsubishi, and U.S. Bank. Resolution 4869 also contains the bond purchase contract with the proposed underwriters, and one of the lengthy documents in your package was a very important document, the preliminary official statement that provides the required disclosure about the bonds that the department creates for the benefit of potential purchasers. We have a very comprehensive process to develop this document that includes department staff, external disclosure counsel, representatives from the water system, and representatives from the city attorney's office. We do have representatives here today who could answer any more detailed questions about the bond offering. We have representatives from Wells Fargo, from our bond counsel, Ora Carrington, and from our financial advisor, Prague. And that concludes my remarks, and I take any questions you have.
Thank you very much. Do commissioners have questions? I see Ms. Broad's hand immediately.
I have one question. At our last commission meeting, I believe I asked you, Mr. Leiber, what the effect would be of this bond on the ratepayers. And your response was nothing for now. So I'd like you to be a little more specific about what effect this would have on ratepayers.
Okay. So this bond offering was contemplated when the previous board adopted the budget for fiscal year 13-14. That budget had a capital budget of $766 million, and about 64% of that was to be externally financed. So the rates that are in effect this year are based on sufficient debt service to cover these bonds. So the rates that are in place for fiscal year 13-14 are set at a sufficient level to cover the debt service on these bonds. Now, when we do future bond offerings next year and so forth, those would require additional rate adjustments. But the rates in place this year are sufficient to cover the debt service.
I noticed you have, somewhere I saw in here, that you've got a substantial bond that's going to be introduced next year. Is that?
We do have reference in the preliminary official statement of our capital outlook for the next 5 years, with the acknowledgement that about 77% of that will be funded from planned future bond offerings. So if we do proceed with a capital budget of that size and with the external financing, additional rate adjustments would be required.
So at least the next one would require ratepayer adjustments to pay for this or to compensate for this?
Correct. Any future bond offerings above this level would likely require rate adjustments to support the debt service.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have fun at City Council.
Thank you.
I think we'll go to the speaker cards and then go back to the agenda. Madam Secretary, we have 2 cards for number 27.
Yes. The first speaker is Tony Wilkinson.
Tony Wilkinson, Panorama City, and the Neighborhood Council DWP MOU Oversight Committee. It's challenging making comments not knowing what the actual response will be, but I can't tell you how wonderful it is to have this commission insist on disclosures from the 2 joint institutes. As the general manager said, of course, it had to go to the board of each joint institutes, and we'll find out shortly what the board said and whether they disclosed what you asked for or not. I would strongly suggest that if the response is not what you and we, the public, expect in terms of openness, that this is a test that should not stop here. If it has to go to litigation, we should probably support the city controller as much as possible. And the final analysis, if we can't make these institutes open, since this is work that needs to be done, I'm convinced with our labor partners at the department, the funding has been given. Perhaps it's time for a brand new set of institutes created with our partners to do the same work on their behalf and the department's behalf, but this time set up so that it is open and transparent. I look forward to finding out what happened.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next speaker is Jack Humperville.
My name's Jack Humperville. I'm with the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council. It's pretty tough to comment when you don't know anything. We haven't seen any reports. Everything I've heard over the last 6 years is that the Joint Training and Joint Safety Institutes were nothing but a vehicle to absorb a lot of IBEW overhead after all the significant layoffs. from my personal point of view, is we're going to have to wait. But I would think a nice little audit by the Internal Revenue Service of these two organizations would be a very useful thing if you are going to have problems getting at the necessary information. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was the last speaker card.
Okay, we'll move to item 24, Haywee Power Plant Penstock Replacement Project, requesting the Los Angeles City Council to establish design-build criteria pursuant to Section 371B of the City Charter.
I can just do a brief presentation on this. We're requesting the board to approve for us to move forward with an ordinance to allow us to go for a design-build proposal to restore the penstock and the operations of the Haywee Reservoir penstock that feeds the power plant and also is part of our Aqueduct 1 supply of water coming from the north, about 30 miles south of Lone Pine City. So this is a power plant that has been in service since 1927, and the infrastructure that is currently in place, that moves the water and generates renewable energy from the power plant is in a desperate need of repairs and restoration. And what we're asking this board is to allow us to go forward with the proposal for picking a design firm and a construction firm to restore the scope of this power plant. And the estimated cost is about $21 million, but we're not asking for any contracts or anything at this time. We're just asking for your permission and approval to go forward with establishing an ordinance to allow us to advertise.
So is this estimated cost for the project, or what's the cost for selecting these people?
This is an estimated approximately $21 million is our estimate, but as we put this RFP out on the street to get proposals for design and finding out more on the scope of what needs to be done and also the construction bids that accompany that design, we'll be doing more of a fine-tuning of what the final cost as we bring the contracts to you.
For the design?
For design and build. It's one contract, build. Design and build contract. So we've done preliminary inspections on the infrastructure. We haven't invested too much effort into finding out exactly the scope of work, but we have performance criteria that we would put in the RFP as we get it out there for somebody to come in to inspect it, design it, construct it for about $21 million estimate that we think it's going to cost.
Questions? Comments? I move approval.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 26, agreement number 47198 for evaluation, measurement, and verification of energy efficiency programs.
Mr. President, I just want a quick note here. Well, I don't believe it actually applies per se, just out of abundance of caution. I previously worked for Navigant Consulting before I came to the department, and I want to thank all of the provisions of time and such have gone past. I no longer own anything of Navigant Company. I think out of abundance of caution, I'll excuse myself from this discussion. I'll be back afterwards.
Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, President and Commissioners. This is...
Please introduce yourself.
David Jaco, Director of Energy Efficiency for the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power.
Armin Sayan, Energy Efficiency Engineering.
This is a contract to perform evaluation, measurement, and verification of our ongoing energy efficiency programs. And through a competitive selection process that received 7 proposals, which we narrowed down to 4 of the most qualified proposals, we selected ultimately Navigant to perform the work. The state of California has put the publicly owned utilities on a similar playing field as the investor-owned utilities through a series of legislative efforts, AB 2021 and SB 1037 from 2006 and 2005, required the publicly owned utilities to set targets for energy efficiency with the goal of seeing a 10% over 10-year savings from energy efficiency, and at the same time to do regular evaluation, measurement, and verification of these programs to make sure those savings are actually occurring, actually accruing to our ratepayers and our grids so that we can base procurement decisions on them, and to do process evaluation to identify areas of the market that we've already well saturated, and so we can redirect program efforts to other areas. And that's what this is meant to do. It's a 3-year contract up to, not to exceed, $3.7 million.
Other questions? Commissioner Barad.
Yes. It says in the resolution that the board finds it more feasible to have work performed by an independent contractor. So I wonder, Mr. Jaco, if you could give me some clarification. Does that fall under the outsourcing of people under the terms of this contract? And if it does that mean that the DWP people will receive a bonus because this is contracted out?
Okay. There's a couple factors. Let me address the first part of that, Commissioner. There's a couple factors as to why this is being outsourced. Statutory as well as practical. From a statutory standpoint, this type of evaluation is mandated by the state legislation that requires it to be done by an independent third party. Independent as in a third party that's outside of the utility. Now, we have the contract with them, but they are a third party. So there's that requirement. But also from a practical consideration, this is a very specialized type of work, very specialized type of analysis that requires statistical methodology, sampling, a lot of field work, a lot of calculations. It's not something that traditionally utilities, any utility, has had the capacity internally to do entirely on its own, even if it was allowed by the state legislation. Now, when it comes to the piece about whether this triggers I believe you're referring to the 10% overtime rule requirement, I'm not really sure on that, except that we have taken this through part of any contract like this that's being outsourced is to go through IBW Local 18 for a notice of compliance, and that process is where the IBW signs off on accepting the need for the work to be outsourced and that they're satisfied that all the other terms of the MOU have been addressed. So on the basis of that, I believe we're covered.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you just said.
On the basis of that, I believe we're in line with the requirements of the MOU.
Which means that they will get the bonus?
Well, it's not a bonus per se, and my understanding is that it's ensuring that 10% overtime is being offered.
Okay, isn't that just semantics, really?
Well, and just a quick clarification, in this particular contract was exempt from any of the NOC items because it was mandatory third party.
Right.
So that 10% bonus wasn't a part of it.
Excuse me, Director of Labor Relations, Rose Garcia. This particular contract is exempt from the 10% overtime offer of overtime obligations, so there is no additional cost, if that's what your concern is?
Yes.
So there is no 10% offering of overtime because it's not work, number one, that our employees do, but number two, it's exempt.
Okay, so even though it's contracted out, there is no 10%. This doesn't trigger the 10%?
This does not trigger it.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments? Yeah, I don't really have a question. It's just that I'm sort of fascinated that with all of the emphasis on energy efficiency that we now are at the point of actually evaluating it and having companies that do that. And it sounds like a very specialized kind of work. I mean, how many companies do this?
There's a cottage industry around it. Offhand in my experience, when I was with Edison, 15, 20 firms nationwide. but an entire cadre of sub-consultants that are involved with it as well. This is actually the third time we're doing a contract on EM&V, but this one's much more extensive than what we've done in the past. In the past, we've done EM&V as it was required, but this time it's a significantly larger undertaking because we have a much larger energy efficiency portfolio now. We're investing a lot more money in energy efficiency, and we've incorporated it more directly into our integrated resource planning process. So we're really counting on the numbers across the entire portfolio to come to bear and impact the grid and have those 10% savings by 2020 that we've adopted.
So essentially all of the major or maybe minor public and private utilities need to have this type of analysis done.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm just musing a little bit. In 1979 or 80, as a member of the State Assembly, I was the author of the first energy conservation tax credit in America, California Energy Conservation Tax Credit. It's probably long gone, but you didn't need to evaluate it at that time. I'm glad to hear that it's made so much progress. Are there other comments, questions? Any motion in support?
So moved.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Someone can tell Mr. Nichols he can come back. In fact, we need him back.
We need him back.
He's back. Okay. We need you for this item, Mr. Nichols, as well as for many others. Item 27, discussion and possible action on independent review of the Joint Safety Institute and the Joint Training Institute. I will turn to you.
We have received two items since our last meeting on this. One is a letter from, two letters from Local 18 IBEW indicating their intent under Section 12 of the JTI and JSI trust agreements to retain an outside independent CPA firm to undertake an audit in accordance with the provisions of both of those agreements. And then in addition, received, I believe the board here has received a letter from the City Administrative Officer indicating their intent to undertake efforts as requested by the City Council Energy and Environment Committee to perform certain activities and evaluation of the same performance of both of those organizations. So both of those efforts are now ostensibly are underway. The timing and such of that I'm not clear of. It's not laid out in the letter, but both of those actions are there, and we have letters on both of those. I'm not sure. I think there was understood that there was going to be someone from the CAO's office here today. I'm not sure if that's the case or not.
Mr. Nichols, at our last board meeting, we had made a request for information. Is there any information forthcoming?
Not at this time. I think through the information that has been provided with respect to this letter, is that would be forthcoming as a result of that audit, of which we've been notified.
Okay. I have a few comments, and I'm sure other commissioners will as well. But I'll take the liberty of the chair to make mine and then call on others. This letter, I became aware of this letter this morning from Local 18, as well as the letter from the CAO, although I guess that letter was dated October 10th. Frankly, I had intended to support a resolution that I assumed was going to be made by one of my colleagues asking the city controller to do an audit. In light of the formal request for an audit by Local 18, I'm prepared to assume that this is a good faith request to a good faith independent CPA firm to provide the information that this board needs in order to assess how the dollars for these joint institutes have been spent. I should emphasize that this board is determined to understand how this money has been spent, whether it's been spent wisely, what the purposes have been for the expenditures, and we will need backup documentation to understand the information we receive. Look, there are audits and there are audits. I've seen audits that basically say everything's fine. And I've seen detailed, sophisticated audits that track expenditures and go into great detail as to how money has been spent. It's the latter type of audit that we expect from any independent accounting firm that is selected. Further, we expect everything that arises from that audit to be made public, not to be confined to either the trustees of the two trusts or to this board. I feel that in light of the fact that this request has been made at this time, we should welcome it. It's a positive step. The people of Los Angeles have every right to know how their money is being spent, and so far they don't know how the money for these two institutes has been spent. I would like to submit a couple of specific suggestions. Mr. Nichols, you received a letter that I have a copy of from City Controller Ron Galperin dated September 27th, spelling out specific information that he wanted provided about the Joint Safety and Joint Training Institutes. I'd like that to be made a part of the record. I'd like that to be sent to the CPA firm. I'd like those specific items to be dealt with by the CPA firm. Controller Galperin's request covered only a 3-year period. I believe that the request should essentially go back throughout the tenure of these two institutes. Secondly, I believe it's appropriate to obtain information on payments made by either of these institutes to anybody in an amount of $5,000 or more. I'd like to see copies of the trust checkbooks, and I'd like to see copies of checks and descriptions of checks for $5,000 or more. And while we're pleased that the CAO and others are helping, I want to emphasize that ultimately this department is the responsibility of this commission. And this commission is committed to making LADWP the best and most efficiently run utility in the country. We can only do that if this information is made available to us. I would like to request that that information be available not at the next board meeting, but at the board meeting after next, which gives them 30 days. Records presumably have been kept consistently. This should not be information that's difficult to obtain. In light of the fact that Local 18 wants this process rather than the controller, and the controller will have to decide what he wants to do, I'm prepared personally to defer to it for 30 days and expect that the detailed information outlined by the controller be made available to the CPA firm, and that this CPA firm provide it as a part of the audit. I have one question. I understand that they've requested a specific CPA firm. I'm not familiar with them, Miller Kaplan Eris LLP. Has this CPA firm done other analyses with regard to these two trusts, to your knowledge?
I'm unaware one way or another.
Okay, the language of the trust agreement calls for an independent CPA firm. Now, it's a CPA firm. I assume it's an independent CPA firm. It would give me greater comfort if the CPA firm was not one who had done prior work. I don't think it will bar it from doing the audit if it has, but whether it has or not, I expect the detailed information that I just outlined. Commissioner Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. President. To your last point first, this is, in fact, the firm you referenced here, Miller Kaplan. They are the firm that does the taxes for these two trusts. And while I'm sure they are a reputable firm, and we will certainly give them that, it doesn't pass the smell test, as it were. We would all be better served had this letter that's in front of us found a more independent auditor. In fact, it would be kind of best practices in any corporate setting that you would look for someone who is independent to do this work. So that's the first part. The second the questions I would have, the letter that we're looking at from Local 18 dated yesterday doesn't specify time, which Mr. President, you've now asked for in 30 days, so it doesn't specify time, and it doesn't specify that all items will be made public. So I would add that as well, that all of this information must be public and within the 30 days.
I did make those two requests, and I appreciate your also making them.
Right. So I would. Do we know if the trusts have ever had an audit before?
It's my understanding the trust has a financial audit every year.
But that information hasn't been made public.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Mr. President, I guess I will forward that request onto IBEW. I do hope that there's an understanding here that this is a request by IBEW. I have no authority over IBEW
we definitely understand.
to undertake. Just, I can convey the information request to them.
To respond to Commissioner Fleming's question about prior audits, Article 6 of both trusts, which is entitled Responsibilities and Duties of the Trustees, has a Section 8 in the Joint Safety Institute Trust Agreement and a Section 12. Well, there's a typo. One of them is one is either the JTI or one's Section 8 and one's Section 12. I'm not sure which is which, but the language is the same, which says the trustees shall maintain books, records, and accounts of all their transactions as trustees. Such books, records, and accounts of the trustees shall be audited annually or more often, as the trustees shall determine by a certified public accountant. All such books and records and accounts shall be available for inspection upon request to all parties under this trust agreement and as required by law. So there is a requirement that there be an annual audit, and I would expect that in light of that, this information should be readily available. This is not something that should require an extensive amount of time. And I think it's highly reasonable for this board to expect that this information, which is required to be audited annually, is readily available and be made available to us now, having made the prior request at the last meeting and having received nothing. We fully expect a detailed response in 30 days at the meeting after the next one. Counsel?
Yes, sir. I would suggest that what you said be put in the form of a motion, a resolution, and voted on by the board.
I move.
Excuse
yes.
me, Mr. President?
Yes. I will move in a moment.
I would like to suggest that I have some things I'd like to add to the list.
Okay.
And I don't know if the other commissioners do,
okay.
But I have some very specific items that I would like to have addressed, and if we could maybe do the motion after we all get through it, if that's all right.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
What I would propose is that each commissioner that wants to add specific items to the motion beyond those that I have already noted, which are the contents of the Galperin letter, the 3 specifics that I outlined, which I'd be happy to repeat, the 30-day time period, and that the results be made public. And we'll add any other conditions or criteria that the other board members would like to add.
See the Galperin?
Yeah.
I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah.
And I just had so before we start adding some things, I just also had a question about the letter from the CAO, and this effort by Local 18 doesn't preclude the CAO from going ahead and doing whatever they're terming it. They're not terming it an audit, right? They had a request for information. So whether it be the CAO or, frankly, whether it be be Mr. Galperin, the city controller, and I don't know that I need to put this in the form of a motion. I would hope and expect that every member of the DWP family is fully cooperative with both the CAO and the controller as they conduct their, and I don't like the word investigation, but as they conduct their inquiry, even if it doesn't at this point rise to the level of an audit. I just would like that commitment from folks that in the interim, over the course of the 30 days, for example, if Mr. Galperin has questions, ones that do not interfere with the audit, and if the CAO has questions which come from council, and again, does not interfere with the process of the audit, every courtesy will be extended to them, and all that information will be provided to them in addition. So the audit doesn't take place of the inquiries that are going on by the 2 other entities.
Council, that doesn't need to be in the form of a motion, I assume?
That's correct.
Okay. Commissioner Funderburk, do you want to add some?
I was going to defer to just go in order.
Okay. Yeah, please. You already covered.
I guess one of my first points, I'd like to echo what you had to say, Mr. President, about the need for something fair, and something pretty expeditious in light of the fact that this has been an issue for the past month, and I trust that we'll get the information that we need. One of the issues that I think that Commissioner Fleming raised related to the independence of the auditor, who's going to audit the reasonableness of the accountant's fees to begin with? I mean, are they going to just say, well, they're reasonable? So I think that there are several issues related to that. But I would specifically like to add to the list of requests that the auditor perform. And this is I raised at the last hearing the notion of benchmarking the financial performance of this training institute and safety institute against other electrical apprentice and journeyman programs, because that's the only way that you figure out whether the money is being spent per capita. You need to figure out the deliverables, but that's one way of doing it. And I found one that's local. It's called the Electrical Training Institute. It was online at GuideStar. For the record, its employee ID number 956123788, and they trained between 1,000 and 1,300 apprentice journeymen in the electrical field, and they're spending quite a bit of money. They're spending what appears to be $6,000 to $7,000 per year per apprentice, and so I guess that leads to we'd like to know how many apprentices are coming out of this program per year, or if any, because if it's not geared to specific individual apprentices, then we need to know who we can benchmark against. But I'd like to specifically know how our joint training safety programs benchmark against the Electrical Training Institute. It's on South Garfield Avenue, City of Commerce, California, and it's publicly available Form 990, on GuideStar or anywhere else. So I don't know if you want to include all that information, Mr. President, but I think that you got the general gist of things.
I do.
Okay.
I would like to just provide some clarifying points on here with regard to that latter point. I think perhaps there was a bit of a misunderstanding with regard to what the focus of JTI-JSI is, as was explained at our last meeting with Mr. Kokoska. Kind of went through general terms what it does. It's not an apprentice training program. It's a very different. There are apprentice training programs, and there are activities that are done. There are things that are done through the local. There are things that are done through the department. There are training programs, very significant training programs that the department does completely on its own. JTI-JSI provides a labor management review of key issues of things that are, as I discussed at our last meeting, issues that come up that jointly labor and management collectively come to the conclusion need some attention, could use some attention. Often that group does some evaluations of what programs are out there, but generally speaking, then the implementation of those programs come back through the department. So I don't think you'll find that going to, as an example, the apprentice program that you spoke to, having that be benchmarked would have particular relevance to what we're doing, because they're just very different purposed organizations.
I guess then that would lead me to or an appropriately selected benchmark organization to be benchmarked against.
And I can present that. Obviously, we can present those requests to IBW on this. I think there's a tension here with respect to the time frame during which you're looking for this, and the granularity with respect you're asking for.
Can I make a suggestion? Yeah. I share Commissioner Funderburk's desire to get a benchmark, but perhaps we don't need that within 30 days. Let's get the financial information within 30 days. That should be easily obtainable within 30 days. There's no reason that can't be collected in a week. And if it's difficult to find an appropriate benchmark, I still believe that's a very important and appropriate request, but I would not like to see the financial information held up by somebody saying we can't get the benchmarking done within 30 days. Is that okay, Mr.
That's perfect, actually. Yeah.
Other? Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Broad.
I wanted to just pick up on what Bill had said, and I agree with the President that we don't need to hold up this because of what I'm about to ask, but I think what I would like to know, and I think the public would like to know, is what exactly do these trusts do? It has not been made clear. In fact, it's been kind of a secret. And who do they train? Do they train people who work at DWP? If it's not apprentices, then who? Do they train trainers? Who's been trained by them and what exactly? So I think this is something that we ought to put on our list for further data, not give up on that. What exactly do they do? The other thing, I just want to make a comment that, $40 million may be just a blip in the overall budget of DWP. But it's the perception here. And these are ratepayer funds. We have to keep reminding ourselves, these are ratepayer funds. And it's a public relations disaster, not only for the union, but for DWP. And I sit on this commission with my esteemed colleagues, and I hope, Mr. Nichols, that you will convey this to the union boss, that this is a real disaster in terms of public relations for DWP, and that we really do want this forthcoming, this information. The only other thing that I would add, I noticed in the list of Ron Galperin's list, the controller's list, he says rentals and leases. I'd like to just specify cars. I don't know if they have rented cars, leased cars, or bought cars, but that's something I would specifically like to know. Thank you.
And then, Mr. President, I guess we would just ask the clerk, not for the next meeting, but for the following meeting, to make sure that this is agendized and that this report, that there's a report back at that meeting.
Good. Okay, I'm prepared to try my hand at a motion that other people should feel free to correct. But I move that we communicate to the trustees of the Joint Safety Institute and the Joint Training Institute and to Miller, Kaplan, and Aracey that we expect a report by our November 19th, 2013 board meeting, which report will be made public. That includes responses to all of the items contained in the September 27th, 2013 letter from City Controller Ron Galperin to General Manager Ron Nichols, adding under support documentation automobiles, and that not be limited to the 3-year time period set forth in the September 27th letter, but include the tenure of the two institutes, that it also include records of checks and electronic transfers that exceed over $5,000, all checks and electronic transfers that exceed $5,000. That's my motion. Are there any amendments to the motion?
I would second that.
Are there any amendments to the seconded motion?
I would like to make a separate motion.
Okay, well, let's deal with this one
after this
first.
But I'm in favor.
Any discussion on this motion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? It passes unanimously, and we expect that to be communicated. Commissioner Funderburk?
So my motion would be that upon completion of the financial disclosure requested in President Levine's motion, the request to the auditor is to produce a comparable benchmark nonprofit or other vehicle to compare the cost efficiencies and use of the monies expended by the two trusts.
Would you be amenable to a friendly amendment incorporating Ms. Barad's concern about adding to that a description of what these institutes do?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Those in favor?
Hold on, excuse me, I'm sorry. Let me just make sure that there's a time frame on that so that it's not open-ended. That's all right. Do you have any idea on the time frame?
90 days.
The 90 days?
I honestly don't know. I mean,
Okay.
Well, 90 days is plenty of time.
But let me suggest one item that I think we might be losing sight of here, and that is separate and distinct. The issue with regard to what these organizations do is a specific item that is the topic of the request
of the CAO,
yeah. And that I anticipate that he will be providing that. Some information, I assume, is going to be provided by the trust to comply with that. I would assume that's how to get that information and undertake that. So this could be, that aspect of it could be duplicative to that.
Mm-hmm. Well, this may be a moot issue, and the way this is only triggered upon the finalization of the financials. That way, it doesn't get in the way or provide an excuse.
Right.
And I think that what we should do is just set 90 days from today.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that if they don't know what they do within the next 90 days, then that says something.
Just as a clarity, that wasn't my point. My only point was an issue of efficiencies.
Right. The CAO clearly has that outlined as his first, one of his first items, if not his first. And if that's satisfactory, then this part of it becomes moot. So with that convoluted description, I think the gist of the motion is well understood. Those in favor?
Aye.
It's also unanimously approved. I just have one other point to make with regard to the Local 18 request of the CPA and Commissioner Funderburg's question about the fees, which is a very good question. They clearly have the right to make the request they did, and as I said, I take it in good faith, and we all do. But it should be noted that if the audit is done by an independent certified public accounting firm, those costs will be paid by the trust. Whereas if the audit were done by the city controller, which is what we had intended to ask for today, those costs would not have been paid by the trust or by ratepayers. So I can't resist saying that it's a bit frustrating then that when there was an option to have a totally appropriate audit done by somebody who's well positioned to do it and requested the ability to do it, and who may still, well, who requests the ability to do it, without any ratepayer charge, that the request was for the option that includes a ratepayer charge. I think it's unfortunate. It was done. I don't want to slow this process down. And the fact that this request was made, and they want to get going immediately, is a good sign in general, and we welcome it. But we expect it to be done within the 30 days I outlined. It's unfortunate that this particular mechanism is paid for by the trust, whereas the other one wouldn't have been.
So the ratepayers are paying for this CPA.
Yes, they are. Okay, I think that dispenses with item 27. And that, I believe, also concludes the open session items. So we'll take a brief recess and go into closed session.